Welcome to God's Favourite Shepherds, a collection of 39 short stories rounding out the lives of mainly lesser-known Bible characters, with many of the stories ending with a short quiz. Listen now to the author of God's Favourite Shepherds, Bill Ackland.
This story comes from what we term as the Old Testament, and it's entitled, A Mother Gives Away Her Son. And the story is to be found in 1 Samuel chapters 1 and 2. Ramathaim Zophim, that is also known as Ramah, is situated in the hill country of Ephraim, about 15 kilometres north of Jerusalem. This is my hometown. My husband's name is Elkanah, meaning God has redeemed. He is from the tribe of Levi, 18 generations from that son of Jacob of the same name. My life is not a happy one, for I am constantly mocked by Elkanah's other wife, Peninnah, who has many sons and daughters. I have none. My husband assures me he loves me dearly. He says that he is surely better to me than 10 sons, but that only serves to remind me I do not have 10 sons, not even one. My life to me is one long heartache, bathed in many tears. As my husband is a Levite, we make the journey together every year to Shiloh, which is the place where the tabernacle is located. Here he performs his duties and here we worship God. On one of our annual visits, I was weeping as I prayed silently in the tabernacle courtyard. I asked God that if he would give me a son, then I would return him to God to serve him all the days of his life. He would be a Nazirite, dedicated to God for special service. Eli, the high priest of the time, noticed my lips were moving, and thinking that I was affected by strong drink, admonished me. He said I should not do such a thing, especially coming to the house of the Lord in such a state. I assured him that I was not drunk, but in agony of spirit, I was praying to the Lord for a blessing that only he could give. I was encouraged when the high priest said, "May God grant you peace," and the answer to your request. That made me happier, and I felt like eating again. The time came for us to return to Ramah. Imagine my joy when, not long after we returned home, I realised I was pregnant. After all these years of unhappiness, I could not adequately express the joy in my heart. When my baby boy was born, I called him Samuel, which means heard by God. When it was time for Elkanah to perform his work at the tabernacle the next year, all the family but Samuel and I went to Shiloh. I told my husband that I would not go up to worship until my baby was weaned. Then I would go to present him to the Lord, to live and work at the tabernacle and serve God in that special way. God had heard my prayers. I had promised to give my son back to the Lord, and I was determined to fulfill my promise. It would be painful, though, not to have my precious little boy at home with me. I was impressed that Samuel would do a great work for God. Israel surely needed someone to keep the nation true to our wonderful Lord. How my heart ached for my dear boy, especially when he was very young. I knew, though, that this was the right thing to do, especially when he became an adult and the judge and prophet of our nation. When Samuel was about 3 years of age, he was weaned. Now it was time for me to make the long journey to Shiloh to formally give him to God at the tabernacle. I took animals to sacrifice and an ephah of flour and a skin of wine for the ceremony. Eli met me outside the tabernacle. I reminded him that I was the woman who had prayed so earnestly to the Lord that day 3 years ago, and that I was not drunk as he had supposed I was. "Here is my son," I said. "I have lent him to the Lord for the rest of his life. He shall be his for as long as he lives." The years went by. We continued to worship each year. Then I would take a garment I had made for my son, each just a little larger than the one I made for him the previous year. For my act of thanks and devotion for giving me a son, God rewarded me by blessing me with a number of sons and 2 daughters. Never had I thought, when I wept for my childless grief, that I would one day be the mother of many children. My name is Hannah, which means graciousness. I would now like to share with you the prayer I sang that God inspired me to sing in gratitude for his great blessings. My heart exults in the Lord my God. I am made strong in the Lord. I can smile now at those who mock me, for I rejoice in your salvation. No one is holy but the Lord, for there is none just like you. You are the great rock on which we rest. Let no one boast in his presence. Let no pompous words come from our mouths. For it is the Lord who is the God of all knowledge. Only he can determine the reasons for our actions. The mighty are soon humbled when their bows are broken, but those who felt defeated are given extra strength. The wealthy now have to labour for their bread, but those who are hungry are now full. She who is barren has 7 children, and she who has borne many is now frail. The Lord can bring death and make alive again. He places men in the grave and can bring them out. The Lord brings poverty and gives riches. He humbles the proud and exalts the humble. For those who struggle for their daily bread, he places ample food on their table. He dusts off the ashes from the beggar, placing them among the princes of the country, and gives them a right to a glorious throne. For the foundations of the earth were established by the Lord, and the world rests upon them. He will protect the feet of the saints wherever they walk, but no sound will come from the wicked in their dark place. A man shall not prevail by his own strength, for those who fight against the Lord will end up in little pieces. He will send his loud thunder against them. The Lord will judge to the furthest parts of the earth. He will give strength to his own king and exalt the might of his anointed. And so ends Hannah's story. There is now a brief quiz concerning the story, so see how you do in answering these questions. What was the name of the tribal land where Elkanah's family lived? How far from Jerusalem was their hometown of Ramah? What work did Elkanah do once a year? Did Hannah have any more children after Samuel?
You've been listening to God's Favoured Shepherds, a book with 39 short stories rounding out the lives of mainly lesser-known Bible characters. If you have any comments or questions, or to obtain a copy of this book, give us a call within Australia on 02 4973 3456 or send an email to radio@3abnaustralia.org.au. We'd love to hear from you.